Welcome to the Motorcycle Mavericks podcast, here in the Law Tiger studio, where we get raw
and real with our good friends within the motorcycle community.
Well, welcome back to the Motorcycle Mavericks podcast. Of course, as always, we are in the Law Tiger studio, and Ari, it is good to be here with you today to get started with this. And I am super excited about this podcast. This is day one in the studio. We've been building it out. It's been, let's call it a pipe dream for a while.
Many years, actually.
And, now we're here. I got to hear from you exactly what's the goal here? What are you envisioning here with Motorcycle Mavericks?
Well, I've seen podcasts and interviews over the years, and honestly, they've been pretty good, but they're more like surface coverage. Like tell us about your business, tell us about your charity. They really didn't get down and dirty or raw and real when it comes to like getting to know the individual on a personal level. And you and I have talked about this, and we worked together for 13, 14 years. Past couple years, like we got to get a podcast. We have this brand new building. We have an area we can build a badass podcast studio, and that vision has now come to fruition. And we've made it happen in this really cool, I think is very cool studio. So, you and I have the privilege of being part of the community, right? We interface with builders. We interface with event coordinators, social media people, influencers. And we see the other side, the more personal side, the more endearing side. We talk about things outside of just motorcycles. Oh, yeah? And we want to give people that sneak peek, that insider's view that they may not see, because all they see is the persona, right? They see the image or the business end of things, not the personal.
And see, that's awesome that you're going to go in depth with these people, right? But before you go anywhere there's nobody here with us today.
That's right.
I want to get in depth into you. Like,
that didn't sound very good, by the way.
You know what I'm saying here. I want to do it PG, right? But
right.
I want to know, you and I, you're right. We've worked together for a number of years. We've ridden together, put a lot of miles together.
True. That's true.
What got you into this? What got you on two wheels? Because we all have that story. What's your story?
So it's funny you mention it, because I just thinking about that yesterday, I was going to get gas. There was a guy at the gas station, and he recognized my license plate. We started talking motorcycles, and he is on three-wheelers. That's what he does. He goes to the dunes with his family. And I said, "You're funny you mention that." I go, "My first motorcycle was a 70 ATC, a three-wheeler."
Yeah. So he's still on the old school three-wheelers.
Yeah, 250Rs, which I used to have.
Keeping them alive.
Yeah, he's getting into sand rail, and so that's where it all started. My father, Warren Levenbaum, who's also my business partner, luckily at 8 years old bought me a little 70 ATC, and I tore the shit out of that thing. Took it on the grass. When the water filled up on the golf course, I'd be floating on it, towing my buddies with a boogie board behind it, and I just got the bug. I mean, I still have a photo my mom took of me getting it on the driveway, and then it progressed from there to 185S, 250R, then it went to XL80, then CR250. And then eventually, and my dad had a Virago 750 at Gold Wings. He had a chopper bolted to his tree because he had the guy couldn't pay him a fee, so that was his collateral. So I saw this cool chopper bolted to a tree, and I just got the bug. And later went on to getting street bikes, and had the opportunity to buy Harleys, and now I've got a bunch of different brands of bikes, both old and new, and I just love it. I breathe it, live it every day, and it's my passion.
So it's cool because most people, we all have our own story what got you there, right? A lot of people, it's for your fathers. We've heard mothers before.
What's yours?
Mine's a little different. My father does not ride. Okay. Knows how to ride, appreciates motorcycles. It was actually my grandfather.
Interesting. Okay.
So my grandfather, I grew up in Utah.
Okay.
He worked at a place called Geneva Steel.
Nice.
So worked the steel plant. He actually drove the locomotive, moving all the, I don't know what the goods he was moving. But my grandpa actually had an 86 fully dressed Goldwing. And when I was a kid, that's what he commuted when the weather was good. That's what he took to get to the plant. But when I was lucky and good, I got to help Grandpa wash the wing. So I remember thinking that was just the coolest thing ever. And he lived in Orem, Utah. So, at the time, it was more rural. Not a lot of people were out there. And I was probably 15. And I think my parents weren't around. And Grandpa literally threw me the key to the wing and said, "Go for a ride." And I've always been tall, but the Goldwing is very heavy. And 86 was fat pig. I mean, they were not light.
Hope you never laid that thing down.
No, and it was, very tall. And I remember jumping on, knowing how to barely work the friction zone and barely get it going. And I stopped to the very first light there. It's a road actually called 800 North. And I hit 800 North. and I realized that I don't know how to put my feet down without putting down the side stand, the kickstand, to actually hold the bike. So it's this like, oh crap moment hit of like, what am I going to do? And I vividly can still to this day remember going to put both feet down, leaning far into my left hand, my left side leg, and letting that bike lean in and sitting there. And then the second the light went green, going, how do I get back up now?
Your grandfather never bothered to
show me, and
go,
and didn't have the foresight to go, wait a minute, you're a little too tall for this seat height. You can barely even tiptoe.
What year was that, Golden?
It was an 86, fully dressed. I can't remember the model. I know it was a wing.
Bulletproof, by the way. Those motors.
I've been talking. How fun it'd be to get one of those right now.
The new ones are. Oh,
no, I want an old one.
All right.
The new ones. I mean, the new ones are amazing, but and I know they've huge advances.
Sure.
But I'm like, those old school ones are just retro.
Yeah. The
cool.
motors are amazing on those bikes. Yeah.
But that's where I got my start.
Nice.
And mom and dad hated me riding them. Hated it. And my very first bike that I picked up was actually a 600 Ninja. Thought I could do the sport bikes.
That's a fast bike. That's dangerous for a first bike.
Oh, yeah. It was stupid.
Yeah.
We took off and went down to St. George and had a great time, but I didn't know, never learned how to ride. Like, I wasn't smart enough to take a riding class. It was just like, oh, let's go.
Yeah.
I don't know proper riding technique, and shoulders, back, wrist, everything hurt by the time we got there. Swapped with a buddy. He rode a Boulevard.
Yep.
And I rode his Boulevard C50 back.
Okay.
And we traded pink slips when we got back to Salt Lake because he liked mine, I liked his. We straight across traded.
Interesting.
And that's where I got my start. But my first Harley it's my favorite story, is I bought my first Harley Davidson with what I call blood money. So I've always been a country boy. I've always lived out in the sticks and kind of lived this lifestyle.
I can tell that.
Yeah, it's
the
not
outfit
just,
suits you well, by the way.
Listen, it's not just a persona.
Yeah,
like
that's
this
right.
is
It's a real
just
deal.
this is every day.
You're definitely not a poser.
So there's an open bounty in the state of Utah, still exists today, on coyotes. They're just an absolute nuisance.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. So at the time, it was $55 a pelt.
Okay.
So I'm in college, freshman year in college. I would go up in the hills. I would sit and park my truck and sit at right against the tire of my truck, and I had a rabbit in distress call.
Okay.
And if you've ever heard it, it's the most blood-curdling sound ever. But to coyotes, that's just the meal ticket.
Right,
It's the meal ticket. Come and eat.
Come and get it.
So we'd sit there, me and a couple buddies, and we would just pick off coyotes.
What would you shoot with, by the way?
At the time, we were using 22s.
Okay.
Because we were getting them really close.
Hopefully no one from PETA is listening, by the way.
Well, exactly. I mean, but they're a nuisance, right? They still don't think, I guess PETA doesn't agree there. But we were broke. We're broke college kids. We couldn't afford any ammunition but 22. So it didn't always put them down. We always had to, follow up shots. But at the time, like I said, you had to turn in that pelt. So all you had to turn in was like an ear and a lower jaw.
Okay.
And that was the proof that you harvested. And the state of Utah, the DWR, was paying $55 each.
That's a nice little payday. That's a nice bounty.
Yeah, so a college kid making no money with that goal in mind of that Harley sitting at the dealership. Did you kill? I can't remember. I'll tell you, it got to a point where there's a threshold in the state at the time.
And you maxed it out, right?
No, that if you hit that threshold, they then gave you like a special license.
Okay.
That now you had to continue shooting that amount. Like they saw you as someone who really helped keeping the population down, so you kind of had to hit this quota. So
you're kind of like deputized now.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
So we got right to that level and then stopped because we're college kids. We didn't have time for it, and honestly, riding motorcycles and trying to go to school and girls was more important than actually killing coyotes
and being a mascot.
Well,
right?
yeah, that's a different story there.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
But once I got enough money. Honestly, I stopped hunting him because I was spending more time on the bike.
Of course.
And then the blood money kind of continued. Now it was time, hey, let's customize it. Let's put a 21 front wheel on it. And so had to go back to the field and do a little more hunting. And so, that's where my first HD came from, was a blood money bike.
Wow.
Called me the bounty hunter of coyotes, that's apparently. Funny. But
I was spoiled. I just got it given to me. But actually, that's not true. My first Harley, I was a school teacher back then, and so I didn't have a lot of money. So actually, funny story. I bought this Harley from who's now a good friend, Rick Hatch. At what was at the time Hacienda Harley Davidson. It was a 1989, I want to say, or 90 Dyna Y-Glide.
Okay.
Actually, no, 96 Y-Glide.
I remember that bike.
Yeah, had a cheesy ass like celestial paint job on it. Forward controls that were way too long for me.
You say cheesy. I would take that paint job today because nobody has it.
I know, yeah. No, this one needed to be retired. And anyway, the forward controls were massive for like a 6'6" guy or something like that. Maybe it would have worked for you. But I was so excited to have my first Harley Davidson, and I was only like 23, 24, making like 28 grand as a school teacher. But I rode it, and then about 6 months later, I said, my dad was like, we should do some riding together. And this is like right when he had started the new business. And so I said, well, there's this bike I've been looking at that I would love to get, but I just don't quite have the money for it. And bear in mind, I already had the bike. I was financing it through the hilt, making like a $300 a month payment. And
they saw you coming.
Yeah. So anyway, he ended up. I think I paid $5,000 or $10,000. I think the bike was in the mid-teens at the time because it was customized, and Harley you couldn't get new ones at the time, so it was way overpriced. But anyway, so he gave me I think $5,000 or $10,000 to help me with it. But little did he know I already owned the bike, and I was making payments on it. So luckily that money went to pay the bike off, and then we ended up riding together for years to through Colorado, through Northern California, and those are some of my fondest memories. Early on, he did ride a little too slow for my taste.
I was going to ask that is who was the better rider, you or your father? Because I never had that opportunity.
Yeah, I don't like to disparage my father, but riding, he rode, but he was very slow, and we would get in arguments once in a while going on rides because I would, want to go at least the speed limit, and he was holding up traffic behind him on like the one, PCH going up to through Northern California, so. But it was a great time. I think you're lucky though that you didn't keep that Ninja, because I'll tell you, I know many young folks that get bikes like that, and they don't, they get hurt bad.
No, so
it's a lot of bike for.
I was one of the statistics.
Yeah,
I wasn't trained.
Yeah,
we didn't have the right riding gear.
Right,
and just jumped on because it was the cool factor.
100%. Yeah,
and then literally, thankfully, on a 4-hour ride, I learned, oh my gosh, I'm 6'2".
Right,
I'm too big for this bike.
Yep,
because I don't know how. I'm not too big physically.
Right,
but just I didn't have the knowledge to how to handle
100%.
the bike, how to sit right. And I've been to track days. I've been on other bikes that are bigger, better, badder, and have learned the right riding stances.
Sure.
But you're right. It was a stupid purchase at 17 years old. Mom and dad didn't know. It was parked at the buddy's house. They had no clue. And I think it was cheap. I mean, it was just a rat box. It probably was $500. I mean, it was nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how it ever made the ride we went on. That's probably we probably traded pink slips straight across for that.
You probably got the better
for the
deal.
Boulevard.
Yeah, you probably got the better deal. So I know, that we're both still avid riders. We've ridden together. You and I are going to be taking a badass trip next year with Bear, right? We're going to be doing the Himalayas, right?
Yeah, riding the Himalayas.
That's awesome.
A tour through Nepal. Can you believe that?
That's going to be amazing.
Let's talk about just motorcycling, how cool motorcycle riding is.
Yeah.
But there's actually a tour that you can go on. You show up with your bag. That's it.
Yeah.
And they have the bikes for you and everything else. And you get to tour the base of... Everest. I've been told on this, you can actually visually, with the right, binoculars, you can actually see K2.
That's
so
incredible.
You can see like base camp, you can see the whole deal. You talk about riding.
Yeah, that's going to be epic. And we're going to be on, adventure bikes, right?
Yeah, I think they've got, what's the standard stuff out there. So it's, I think, but a BSA. I think he said he's got a few KTMs in his fleet as well. Okay. But it's going to be more of the type of riding and bikes that they have there in Nepal.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
no HDs, thankfully.
Right.
But
well, I don't know. I have one, and although I did lay it down in Mexico last week in deep sand, they're pretty well built bikes. I do think though they're better adept at lighter terrain. If we're gonna be on some hard stuff, I don't know, because it's a heavier bike, but it's still a very versatile bike, that Pan Am. I love it. I think it's my favorite. My favorite Harley.
I don't know how they drive in Nepal.
Yeah.
And I imagine we're going to be splitting lanes between huge buses.
Probably.
And we want something as skinny and nimble as possible to get through.
Yeah.
But you're right. So, your point is, epic rides.
Yeah.
That's
going to be cool. Yeah. He's a good guy, by the way, Bear. I know we're getting some knives from him, and he makes them for Paul and some other guys.
I think we should need to get him in here one of these days.
Yeah, we will.
That guy's got some stories.
Knives,
he has some stories behind him.
Yeah, he's a kind of a Renaissance guy. I've been told. So we'll have to get him on down the road. So what are you currently riding, by the way? I know you build bikes too, right?
So yeah, I've dabbled a little. Wanted to try to build a few bikes. I'm not a builder at all.
Yeah. I don't even know how to turn a screw.
Well, it's a bolt.
A bolt. There you go.
We'll get you here.
I'm a city slicker.
So yeah, real funny story though. So my grandfather was who taught me how to ride on his wing. Come to find out, I had another relative in the family that had an '88 Softail, just a standard. got parked, left in a barn. I picked it up, and tore it completely down and custom built that out. So I've got a custom, I'm not going to say it's performance, but it's a chopper style, still a Softail, completely custom.
Yep.
I changed everything. I mean, even modified the frame. The only thing to actually be original to Harley would be the frame modified and the outer cases of the shell. Even the internals are all brand new, everything else. So that right now is my daily rider.
Yes.
Which, again, it's not really a long haul bike.
Sure.
But I just finished a shovel head chopper.
Nice.
Which is now like my new pride and joy, which is a killer cool story. I mean, you know who Rick Bray is with RKB Customs
Very
out in Fresno.
talented builder and fabricator.
Oh my gosh, the guy has ability.
I want a bike from him. One of these days I'm gonna have him build me a really cool shovel head.
Well, I'm glad to say that I beat you to the punch because
he beat me.
He built this beautiful bike called King Solomon.
Yes.
And it was on the High Seas Motorcycle Rally.
Yep.
A guy bought it off of him on the boat.
Yep.
So it never left Florida.
Yep.
Roundabout way 2 years later, he got my name from somebody else and was trying to sell the bike.
Sure.
Of course, there's really good guys in the motorcycle industry, and there's guys that I don't like to talk about.
Sure.
So he will remain unnamed. Nobody we know, or you don't know, but told me the bike was complete and made me a killer deal.
Yep.
Bought the bike. When the bike showed up, it was literally on a pallet.
Oh my God.
It was completely disassembled,
Did you get a discount?
taken apart. No, because by the time he had sent me pictures, but what I didn't realize at the time was the pictures he sent me were the original pictures that Rick took.
Oh my God,
after he
that's
finished the
horrible.
bike.
Yeah.
So Rick gave him these pictures so that the guy could show, oh look, this is what the bike is, and this is what the builder did. Anyway, so I get this bike shows up, and literally, there's no front end.
Wow.
There's no tins.
Yes.
Now again, it's a chopper, so it only had the gas tank, oil tank, and a rear fender. That was it.
Sure.
All are missing.
Jeez.
So after you pay the money, you get this stuff, and you get a phone call from a UPS shipper. Hey, we need you to come to the FedEx depot or whatever, bring a trailer or a truck, and they bring out a pallet that's wrapped in green cellophane.
Right.
Anyway, luckily the guy, I was able to talk to him, and he sent me the tins. Yes. He claimed that he misplaced them. No, I think he was trying to hold them.
Of course.
And I don't know, still this day, I lost a lot of respect for the guy because I feel like I was ripped off.
Sure.
And I don't know the full story, but he tore this bike down. My assumption is he wanted to modify it, roll it around in Florida, South Beach, and claim that he built it.
Got it.
You know, flex how cool he is, when in reality, it was all Rick's work.
Of course.
Long story short, I just finished that one. So just got that bike done, put a couple shakedown miles on it, still working it out. And you go from an 88 Softail, which, you claim that's vintage, right? Yes. But an electric start, right?
Yeah,
it's got some nice features there, to this now shovel head, which is kick only.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, I'm learning. I get to ride that bike when she wants to be ridden.
100%.
Because if she don't want to start,
it's funny. I was with Trask, and he showed me how to kick his shovel head. I got it done second jump, or second drop. Yeah, they're interesting bikes.
There's a cycle to it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
and it's.
Yeah.
So, I'm a little nervous. I've now put that bike away along with my other one.
Yep.
For the winter. We got, cold temperatures are in Utah are coming. Yep. So put away. I actually put the shovel head, it actually is on a trickle charger.
Nice.
Because it doesn't have a battery, it has a magneto. But I actually have a 4-cell battery that I hid up underneath the transmission.
So you're cheating a little bit.
No, it's actually just for my headlights.
Oh, okay.
For my lights.
All right. I'll give you.
So it's still there, right?
Yeah,
no. 4 cells not enough to kick over a bike, especially a shovel head.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but yeah, I'm riding those two right now, and I got the bug of I need something more long haul.
Sure.
And so I've just found a 2015 Road Glide.
Nice.
Found it from this sweet old guy in northern Utah. Has 14,000 original miles.
Oh yeah, it's a great host bike. Yeah.
Bone stock. Oh, it's a great donor.
Yeah, donor bike.
Bone stock. There's nothing done to it. The guy never rode it, but yet somehow he lost his key fobs.
Yep.
So I'm down to entering the code to actually ride, which is inconvenient. That's fun. I've got my work cut out for me, but the goal is I want to turn that into a performance bagger.
That'd be
now, nothing to go to the track with.
Of course.
But something that if I need to twist on it and it'll go.
Something you can shred through the canyons, rip
and
on.
just have some fun, but do a little style.
Very cool.
I'm going to be reaching out to some couple of people, probably people we're going to have in the studio with us
I'm sure
for some guidance.
Because
that's where I've learned. I mean, again, my father, didn't teach me motorcycles, but by profession is a mechanic.
Sure.
So he works in the HVAC industry.
Yep.
So he gets all that stuff. So
Sure.
I'm always picking his brain. He's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So then I've got to call somebody else
Well,
who
you're pretty
actually
technical,
works on
though.
it.
I mean, you can figure shit out pretty
Yeah, with
easily.
YouTube, it's easy.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. I
Yeah.
find enough podcasts that show me what
That's
to
true.
do on YouTube.
That's true. Well, that's true.
So that's what I'm on now.
Nice.
But I'm a very, very small collector of motorcycles. What's your go-to bike?
Jeez. Well, it started out, like I said, with the Y Glide, and then I had an Electric Glide Standard, both 96. Sold those years ago. They were Evo motors, of course. And then ended up getting to know Jesse Rook, rest in peace. I
got to tell you my Rook story when you get done.
Sure,
here.
absolutely.
Don't let me forget
I won't. And we hit it off. And I had bought this 16 Loretta S, and I'd asked him if he could, Rooktify it or whatever you want to call it. And so he was working over at Buddy Stubbs. Him and Jack Stubbs are good friends, so he was kind of based out of there. And they just customized it, and it became my primary bike at the time. This was 16, 17, and put a chain on there, better suspension, beefed up the motor, because Jesse was doing performance stuff at the time, building these really nice, just performance bikes. So got that done, rode it for a couple of years, loved it, but then I all of a sudden, got the bagger itch like you're getting now.
Yep.
And at the time, Paul Yaffe and I knew each other, but we weren't super tight. And essentially, I said to him, I'm at a point now where I'd like to build a custom bagger. I like your work. Wanted to be more performance oriented, and he's like, great. And so I went through the build process with him and built what I call the Tiger Glide and 2019 Road Glide, and that's my Lot Tiger Glide. I love it. And so I have that, and then of course, as the years progressed, I bought other bikes. I had Jason Mook from Deadwood Custom Cycles build me a badass 1980 FXR. Totally customized it. The only thing stock is the frame. I've been riding that for the past year or two, and then more recently, I've been looking at adventure bikes. So Tony May over at Ramjet gets access to really cool, reasonably priced Pan Americas, and my buddy over at Superstition, Justin Ums, loves his Pan America. It's his best bike Harley's ever built from his perspective. So I'm like, maybe I'll get one of those. And they got a super good deal on it. So I just got that, took it to Mexico, took it to Sturgis, love it. And then more recently in Sturgis, as you well know, I picked up a BMW K1600B. Another friend of mine, you see the pattern here, friend gets one, then I get one, has one, and I rode it and loved it. So, and then of course I've got some older stuff that I collect, 1940s era and now 30s era, military bikes, a couple Indians, couple Harleys. I got a couple. So I got 4 or 5 like Harley Indian variations, and I got a BSA Golden Flash 59, which I bought at Mecum. So I'm starting to get into the older stuff for collecting. I don't ride it as much, like we know Jason Sims does, and some of those guys through the Chase and Cannonball, which is cool. But I like it more for like the visual part, the artwork, the design. I still like riding more modern era bikes that are.
You say that,
oriented.
but now hold on. You have a rigid chopper too.
I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
So don't say you're
Suzy
just
Q.
Yeah. So you can't say you like all the modern stuff because I've seen you ride the hell out of that chopper.
I almost died on that chopper on the way to Bisbee for the
hard parts.
That's
off
true.
Of that
I
bike.
forgot. That is a funny story. Now you mentioned it. So was heading up to the Prowl with Paul and his son Nash, and first time I ever took this bike out, which was a big mistake. Do not take a hardtail chopper on the freeway until you've had a chance to really ride it and experience
to know how it bucks you, because you're going to feel it.
Oh my God. And so, of course, I had ridden it like maybe a mile or two before I got it, and it's been passed around amongst our group of friends. And I'm so fortunate to have Suzy Q. It was in Biker Build-Off, I think in 2003 or something like that.
Yeah, because it was on the show the whole bit.
Perowitz versus Yaffe, so it's cool to have that history and that legacy there. And the bike's awesome, all custom built, ground up. Anyway, heading to the Prowl on I-10, go over an overpass that had sunken in, get bucked in the air, fly up, come down. Foot hits the peg, shears it off. My foot doesn't hit the ground. Don't ask me how. Act of God. I should have been, either severely injured or unfortunately killed. And just basically rode. Paul went and got the trailer, because I couldn't ride the bike. I had no peg, nowhere to put my foot, and that was my story there. I still ride it. I keep it mostly now on like just going on rides locally, just because it is you know, it's a hardtail chopper, you know. But yeah, so I do have that, and I'm good for now. I'm good for now. Like at some point, I'd love to get maybe another more modern, like more modern, not modern, just a newer custom bagger maybe. But I'd really like the soft tail. What's the what's the Diablo? What's that one with the bags? You know the bike I'm talking about, the Harley.
The Harley one?
What's the one that has bags on it? Is it a soft tail? I believe.
You're talking new bikes. I struggle
new
with the
bikes.
new ones.
Yeah, so it's I think it's the soft tail.
Well, they put, you know, the Softail Deluxe, the Softail Heritage.
Deluxe.
They've been putting bags on those for years.
Yeah.
You're not talking the fat, not the fat
Not
boy.
the Fat Boy, not the Fat Bob.
Street Bob?
No, it'll come
Street
to me in a
Bob's
minute.
pretty
But
small.
it's one that you can get with. I think it's a low rider, but that's a Dyna though.
That's a Dyna, yeah.
Yeah,
And you have the S.
Yeah, I have the Lowrider S. I think it is. I think it's. You know what? It isn't. Yeah, I think it's the new. It's one of the newer Dynas with
The ST then.
ST. Thank
That's
you.
what it is.
Yeah, the ST.
So you said Softail. I'm thinking, whoa, different style in
Yeah,
here. Then.
yeah, ST. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name, but I'd like to get maybe a customized ST. Paul did one for a buddy of ours. It came out really nice. But again, for now, I'm very happy with what I have, and I'm just fortunate that I have the opportunity to have these different bikes and experience them and ride them, which obviously you and I are going to do some more riding here as well, right?
Yeah.
Both street and off-road.
I think it's interesting that you look in the motorcycle industry, and you and I both have completely diverse histories and stories and backgrounds in the riding world, yet we both got bit by that customization bug.
Yes.
What was it for you? Because I can tell you what it did it for me. What was it for you that got you to want to customize your first bike?
I think I bought a custom bike. That was, I mean, the bike came custom. It wasn't my customization,
Correct.
but at the time it was all the chrome, custom paint, it's different. Something that wasn't the same as everybody else. And I think why people go custom is because you want it to be individualized, right?
Yeah.
You want it to be something that represents you, your personality, something that stands out, so it doesn't look like a stock bike, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's being able to, obviously you want something that looks cool. I want something that goes fast. I want something that's performance oriented. That basically crosses any kind of bike I buy. But you also want something that, you know, is distinct. And to me, the new way to really do that is through paint, right? If you can get a really badass custom paint job that's different from the others, and I'm not a big on chrome anymore. I'm more of the blackout. You know, I don't like the flashy chrome. I think that trend is not what it was, right? Nothing wrong with it. So
For now, because everything old is new again.
It'll probably come
we'll
back.
We'll be eating
right.
crow here in 2 years.
Probably, you know. But so I think it is just standing out, being different, and I'll be able to have a decision in what represents you and what you like. But to me, the paint, I think, is the modern variant in terms of customizing. That really, obviously, you have custom parts from different builders that are great and whatnot. But yeah, how about you?
Mine was interesting. My first accident on a bike was on the boulevard.
Okay.
Laid it down in a high side.
So it wouldn't have made a difference whether you had the Ninja or not. You still got in an accident.
I still got in an accident, yeah, regardless. A still uneducated rider, right?
Right,
Literally,
right.
If you have not, I'm just like, here's a little PSA for me. If you have never taken a rider safety course, please go take a rider safety course. If you can't afford it, mail me an envelope. I will send you money so you can go take a rider safety course.
And they offer them in pretty much every state, right?
Everywhere.
Here, yeah. They have
You've
a,
got
we have a subsidy
independent
here. We have a
schools.
scholarship here in Arizona.
Yeah.
Through Arizona Motorcycle Safety Awareness Foundation, where you can get half or more than half of the class subsidized through a scholarship. Yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't take a class.
So for me, my story is, of course, not being educated. Jumped on the bike, truck pulled out. My brain went to bicycle mode,
Okay.
where if you lock up the front tire, you let go because you're going to endo the bicycle.
Correct.
Well, we know motorcycles different.
Yeah.
So what happened is I locked up rear and thought I got to get off it.
So you jumped off.
So no, I locked up the rear. As soon as I went into the skid, I thought, oh, I got to let go of the brake.
Okay.
Let go of the brake, bike high sides, I go down. Anyway, so mangle up this bike, and then I get the wild idea because I found the Kariakin catalog.
Oh, yeah.
And it was Let's Go Custom. And we
Yeah.
did custom paint. I painted it myself with a friend.
Nice.
Ex-girlfriend of mine's dad had a paint shop. Thankfully, some reason we were still close
Good.
enough
That's
that he
good.
let me paint.
That's awesome.
So it was a lime green with tribal flames.
Oh, God.
Or an attempt of tribal flames. Like 3 colors of green, because I've always liked green.
Right.
And then it was like everything that came out of the Kariakin catalog that I could fit on that bike was my first customization, because I didn't have a Harley.
Right.
So the options were limited.
Right.
But Kariakin at the time, and still kind of has anything you can bolt on.
And it's pretty reasonable. The pricing is kind of
It was
reasonable.
cheap. Right? I had no money. It was,
all,
you know.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the highest quality stuff.
No,
There's
that's all
good
right.
parts there.
It's a
There's
market
some
for
stuff that I
everybody,
wouldn't even touch now. But that's where I got my start, was circumstantial. Went down. Thankfully, I was okay.
Yep.
And insurance cut me a check. And at the time, I was like, that's a pile of money. And I'm going to do so much to this motorcycle with this pile of money.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I was buying the cheap stuff. I was buying stuff that was like a sleeve of chrome that clipped over part of the frame.
I've seen those before,
to make it look like you
like
have
a
a
bolt.
chrome part.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's like
awesome.
I'm clipping parts on here,
that's
clipping
awesome.
on the rear end, the drive shaft, because the Boulevard's a drive shaft,
Yep.
clipping on a chrome shroud, if you will, so that it looks like I've got a chrome drive shaft. And at the end of the day, it was still a Suzuki.
But once it was done, customized, you probably were like, this is badass.
Oh, it was the best bike. It was the best bike in the
I think
world.
it's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then
That's
I
awesome.
wrecked it again, right? Again, still didn't learn my lesson.
Of course not.
Actually, I lied. That wasn't me. I'm
Someone
one of
else's
those,
fault?
I'm one of those few people that have actually been rear-ended on a motorcycle.
Damn.
And again, after that accident, so when I took my class, please go get educated. I sat at the light, and I know a lot of us do this. We all have our own habits. And I sat at that light in neutral.
Okay.
Both feet on the ground. I actually had my arms folded. Wasn't looking in my mirror as first vehicle. And a Dodge Mega Cab hit me from behind. And if you want to go funny story, I think the guy was fighting with his wife and didn't even see me.
Jeez.
Hit me. I went flying. I'm a country boy, so I typically always have a gun on me.
Yep.
Guy comes up to check on me and sees that I have a gun on me. And he literally pulled his hoodie sleeve down, pulled my weapon, put my weapon up by my hand. I'm out cold. I have no clue this is going on. Luckily, it was an intersection. There was a guy on a sport bike on the cross traffic, and a guy, and I only remember because it was a big dog. Big dogs were huge back when they first came out, and they were a fortune. Right? Nobody could afford them. So a guy in a big dog and a guy on a sport bike watched the whole thing, and they were the witnesses. But I woke up in the hospital handcuffed to the gurney.
Why?
Because there was one story to be told of this accident, and it was the driver of the truck.
He said you were the one.
And he said that I was radical. I had my gun. I cut in front of him. I stopped short, and he hit me.
You had the witnesses to counteract
So
that,
that's
right?
what happened. So
Yeah.
then the witnesses came forward. They're like, no.
that's not the case.
Come to find out, the guy had was out on bond and was,
God.
no insurance. It was the worst kind of story ever.
Sure.
And so, yeah, that's when the Boulevard bit the dust and saw it goodbye.
Yep.
And healed up. And then the money came and started blood money, hunting, and getting myself my first, which was actually a 96 Harley Davidson Heritage Softail.
Nice. I remember that. I remember you telling me about that bike.
And so that's, it's funny how it goes, what gets you into customization.
Right.
And that's kind of my thing is like, I love all these bikes. I've got my list of dream bikes that they're not all Harleys. I've got a couple that I would just die to have. But that's what got me at that younger age was I could really make that custom at Harley, whatever I want. Even with the $55 I just got,
right,
that Coyote sacrifice, now I can buy new grips. And I can put new grips on. It was just really easy to take that heritage and transform it into what I wanted at the time. And but yeah, that's where the customization bug hit me.
Nice.
And nothing against the OEM bikes. I mean, these manufacturers are putting together beautiful, phenomenal machines that I don't even know how they're packing in the technology. You start looking, I mean, your
like
bagger.
cars, you plug them in and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
the
crazy,
bagger I have is even, it's old. It's 10 plus years old.
Yeah.
And I'm still blown away at the technology of it.
So, Lyonel, we've talked about bikes we had in the past, bikes we've customized. We've talked about, some stories like you crashing your bike.
Oh, I got plenty of those.
Yeah.
I only told you what few. I've been down 5 times. I've paid tribute to Mother Road 5 times.
Well, I had a Ducati 900 Super Sport in my 20s, and I was with my dad. He was on his bike, and I was trying to hot dog in a parking lot, try to do a wheelie, which I didn't do very well, and I crashed that one. That one hurt, and then I actually was coming out of a dealership with new tires, and I didn't realize that you got to let the slimy shit
work them off a little bit.
And so I went around, turned, going to a bike night in my 20s, slid, hit the forward control, threw me off, but I actually rolled, got back on the bike, and the bike wasn't too bad. Anyway, I digress.
You are a real rider, is what you're saying.
I don't know about that. So, what, if you could have like any bike, dream bike, and maybe it's more than one, but for now, just like ultimate bike, brand new, old, whatever. What would that dream bike be? No holds barred, doesn't have anything with cost, whatever. What would it be?
Oh, that's hard. It's hard because you start thinking, like, okay, what are the OEMs putting out that I would love? What have they put out? I've been to like the Harley Museum, and you've seen motorcycle number one and what have you. I think for me, it's not any one particular bike. For me, it would rather
you gotta
be,
get out of it.
No, it'd be this. It would be what bike from what builder.
Okay.
Like, I would love to have a CFL built by Jesse James.
I'd love to have him come in here.
Well, yeah. But that's, for me, if you're saying a bike, like, I don't care the model. I wouldn't care the style. I think, for me, my hit list of bikes would be more of who built the bike rather than a manufactured bike. There's too many out there for me. But I mean, my hit list, Jesse James.
Right.
People will hate me for this. Paul Sr., Paul Jr., Billy Lane, Indian Larry. Like, there's my top five.
Fair enough. They're all custom bikes.
All custom bikes, not because of the bike, more because of the builder, because what they've given to the the community, how they've really shaped our industry.
Yeah.
I think that the OEMs wouldn't admit this, but I think even though those guys built radical stuff, I still think it revolutionized a little bit of what they were doing on their side.
You mean the stock bike
side?
Just
the stock OEM build.
Definitely, even the newer bikes have influence. They're doing custom paint now. They're doing custom parts, better wheels. That's all coming from the cool stuff that builders did.
So for me, that's it. It's not just one in particular bike, but if you're going to force me to have one particular, I want an 86 fully dressed wing.
All right,
because
that's
what I learned. That's what I learned on.
Well, maybe I'll get that for you for for an anniversary.
Are you kidding?
Birthday present.
Think how hard it'd be to find one nowadays.
I bet you could find them. I bet you could find 86 Goldwing. Maybe it'd be a year or two newer or older, but
I just think they're classic.
They are.
The CB radio. I mean, come on, man. How do you pass up 8-track, slamming the deck in there, and a CB on your motorcycle?
I think my dad had a Goldwing, actually, now you mention it. So, talking about CFLs, Justin's got one that he built. Sweet bike. Rick does it. Rick gets them.
Yep.
If they're all original, they're going for big bucks now.
Crazy.
The original CFLs. I heard he's building new bikes. A small number of bikes every year. They're like 150, 200 grand.
Yeah. I hear he's still doing full commission bikes.
Yeah, he did one for Dana White, I know, last year. I'd love to get Dana White on, too. I mean, obviously, we have high expectations and lofty goals, so maybe we can get. It'd be cool to have both those guys on, but yeah, those are badass bikes. Riding alongside Justin, coming from Cottonwood. Not Cottonwood, coming from our ride down the hill. He was on one. I was right next to him. That's a badass bike. From Winslow. Yeah,
he just built. When you talk about a rigid frame chopper, that is like the epitome of A, coolness, and B, discomfort on a motorcycle.
I have one, trust me, I know.
But the times that I have ridden on a CFL, which have been very few, it has been so comfortable and smooth that you still know you're on a rigid, granted.
Of course.
But it's almost like, am I really on a rigid?
Yeah.
Is there some type of air suspension back here? Because just the way he gets his rake,
the rake and trail, he's dialed in.
It's just perfect. I mean, there's just something to be said about him.
Yeah.
So
Yaffe's is dialed in too, though. I got to give props to because I have his, the Suzuki, and my dream bike, or one of my dream bikes would be to get the copper chopper he built for the Arizona Centennial.
Okay.
And I've been bugging him about getting me to the guy that bought it, because the woman who won it, I tried to buy it years ago. She didn't want to sell it for what I thought was a reasonable price. Then she sold to someone else, and then it got sold to someone else. So I'm hoping Paul will connect me with him, because obviously we're an Arizona-based company. We live in Arizona. Yep. I would love to have the copper chopper to ride and also to showcase and show people, because that bike Paul built was ground up. So yeah, that would be the chopper I'd want to get. I'd like a CFL too. Don't get me wrong, but I think my all-time dream bike would be what's behind us here on the back wall. Which is a Crocker, but even like a baby Crocker, like a lower CC Crocker, is actually not lower CC, just a less expensive Crocker is like 500,000, all the way up to 700,000-800,000. Right.
You know, it's funny you bring it up.
Too expensive for me.
You're not the best on your cell phone, which is okay. But I actually kicked you a text message about 11 o'clock last night.
Oh, did you? Is there a Crocker?
Well, you realize that the Mecum auction happens in Vegas every.
I've been there
February.
with Jason a couple times. Yeah.
The lots were just announced.
Okay.
And there is a Crocker on the lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be a fortune.
Well, maybe not. But you got a good banker. You got
Yeah,
refinance. It's only money. You can make more. Listen, they're not making any more Crockers. I don't know if you heard this or
I think
not.
we made like 50 of them or something like that.
Yeah, but I was looking through the lot list. I'm always interested. I love an auction.
You sure that's not the one that Jason is trying to sell that he put up for auction
maybe
on behalf of the buyer?
I don't know. Maybe it is, but it's a beautiful. You'll have to see it. I sent it over to you.
I haven't looked at it.
So you can see it. It's there.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take a look at it. I got confused on the baby. The baby I was referring to, what I call baby, 80cc versus 100 was the Bruff Superior. That'd be another bike.
Okay.
I got that confused with Crocker. So even like an 80, a Bruff, is like 100 and something thousand. Obviously, when you're dealing with the SS 100s, they're like 300,000-400,000. But to me, and that's a British bike. To me, that was like and that's a 30s era bike. Was the epitome of like fast and cool. They were the fastest bikes of their time. You know, Crocker, same thing, American built. So to me, this is like fast, cool performance of their era bikes, and that goes along with what I like. So to me, it would be, you know, Bruff, Crocker, but again, they're ridiculously expensive. You know, obviously, I like some of the BSA stuff that's out there, the Triumphs. There's some really cool older, you know, 50s, 60s, 30s, 40s bikes that you know, just kind of created these trends that you know have been carried on, and the legacy of those bikes to me is pretty special.
And I don't want them the way you want them. I want to ride the sucker, right? I want to put hard miles on it. And so that's where it's a different ballgame here. But here's what I want to do. We remember the TV show Harley and the Davidsons.
Yes.
Okay. We know that the bikes they used in that were not originals.
Sure.
They were repops.
Yeah.
Running real motorcycles.
Sure.
I want to get my hands on a repop Flying Merkle. And I want to jump on that sucker, and I want to ride to the bike night. I want to show up to the bar because, and here's why, it'd be a total flex, right? Because you'd have half of the guys, half of the women out there riders that would be jaw dropped.
Sure.
Wanting to know who's the idiot who's riding a Flying Merkle.
You mean you're talking like a board tracker Flying Mercle?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Who's bringing that bike out on the roadway?
That's cool.
And then you'd have the other guys go, it's a repop. Don't worry about it. But how fun would it be to just throw that in your stable of motorcycles to go out and ride from time to time like a rigid chopper?
Sure.
You can't ride every day on it.
Right.
But I'm the guy who I'm all about. I'll buy a repop. I'll ride it just to enjoy it. I know it's not original.
Yeah.
But the guy who owns the original one doesn't know what it rides like. And I at least would have an idea.
Well, the original is worth, I think, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The repops are even expensive. They're like, I think 100 or so. They have a really cool one. I don't know if it's an original repop at the Sturgis Museum, Motorcycle Museum.
I think it was one from the show, actually.
Yeah.
No, you're talking the Merkel. Sorry.
Yeah, the Merkel. Yeah, the Merkel. But again, Jason Sims, he's like, you know, he is the man when it comes to getting older bikes. He's got a website. I forgot the name of it. We'll have to have him on and explain. But where you can buy used bikes. You know, whenever I need a bike that's an older bike, I go to him. In fact,
I like how you put that. Whenever you need
exactly.
an older bike.
I need another bike. I need another bike.
It's not a want. It's when I need.
I just love looking at them. They're like pieces of art. So anyway, Lonnie Isom, great guy out of Sturgis. I think you know him. He takes bikes apart, puts them back together. He's got an Indian Scout that I just bought. Jason brokered the deal, and they took it apart. It's a military Scout, and put it all back together. Original bolts, everything. So I'm looking forward to having that come in. It's being hauled here next week.
And are you going to ride it?
I've ridden some of these bikes at least once, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not the kind of guy that like Jason attracts when he does the Cannonball the Chase, where it's like, okay, you're going to go thousands of miles across, you know, the country on these bikes. To me,
well, they took those back roads too. It's not highway. I mean, they're pothole, crazy.
But they're like walking the bikes up hills. They're laying down, fixing broken. But you know, to me, I'm a city slicker. I like looking at them, and occasionally I'll ride it in the neighborhood. But I literally stick to newer bikes when it comes to riding. I like the performance, the comfort. I wouldn't mind having one kickstart bike, like one shovel head, or maybe a pan head. But to me, I just like the ease of getting on, hitting the button, and going, and knowing the bike's going to be somewhat reliable.
Yeah, it's ready to go.
Ready to go. But
as reliable as you can get with a custom motorcycle, because we know anything can happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of customs though nowadays with the right builders, and it depends what you do. That's a big thing that comes out. What is custom, right?
Yep.
How do you define custom? Is it cutting the front end? Is it changing the rake? Is it bolt-on parts?
Is paint considered custom?
Yeah, I mean, you can ask 10 different people, and they're going to get 10 different probably answers on what is truly a custom bike. And I've talked to builders about this, young, old, experienced, and there's no standard, from what I've been told, definition of custom. And I guess that's a good question we should ask our guests.
Yeah, what's their definition of a custom? Because I say that I have a custom bike that I built.
Right.
But to me, it might be custom. But
Right.
to the next guy, it's not anything different than what the manufacturer put out.
Of course, yeah. So
Let's stay on this custom here for a minute. We keep going back to custom, which I like, which is fun. We've talked about custom bikes. You've talked about your dream bike. Owning custom motorcycles, what's the one custom part that you own and cherish, or the one that you want to own?
Part.
Custom
part.
Because I know mine. Mine's easy.
You mean on a bike I have that I'd like to add to my bike?
Either, or you would want, my part is something I want to build around. I want one part.
It's probably the same thing. You're going to say the same thing as me. Is it going to be
yes, it's a Sugar Bear front end,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I've been thinking about calling him, and obviously he's not a spring chicken, even though the guy's in great shape. But yeah,
He's
I'd like to.
85 years old, still making Springer.
I know.
front ends.
I think I want to get the whole. I was just talking to Lena, who you know well, and her husband, and they're building one. Rick is building one, Fairless, with Lena's husband, and they've been showing me pictures of it, and they bought the rolling chassis.
Did they hold it?
I think I'm going to just do that and have it there, so that when the time comes, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got a cool thing. He's building like a whole museum, or trying to, at least out in Sturgis.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Preserve
We
his
were
legacy.
there so I had the opportunity to go to his 85th birthday party.
Yeah, I missed it. Yeah.
Out there at Sturgis, which is really neat.
How was that?
It was amazing. You look at a guy who is a revolutionary builder.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my opinion, is not given enough credit in the mainstream motorcycle world.
Yes.
Builders, guys like you, enthusiasts, guys like us that just have, we've been indoctrinated by this. We've dove in both feet since we were kids.
Yeah.
We know exactly who Sugar Bear is. We know exactly what he's done. But there's a lot of riders out there that don't. So I felt bad because it was an amazing party to be at.
Yeah.
A-list in the motorcycle world there. But I kind of felt sad. It's like, man, there's some riders out here. There's 700,000 riders here in Sturgis right now.
Right.
And nobody knows that we're celebrating an icon for the Sugar Bear front end, because they just didn't know. And part of that, I think, is because it's the limited ability.
Right.
I don't know if you know this, but Sugar is still just a one-man show.
Right.
So he's cutting, welding, manufacturing every single front end.
On his own.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And so no one's doing that kind of thing. Right. Even the greatest builders, manufacturers, they have crews. They've got teams now. They've got the CNC machines and everything else. And not Sugar. He's running it old school, the way he's always done it. And he doesn't care. And I know, just fair warning, he's got a waiting list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to get on the waiting list now. And if you don't,
maybe somebody who chooses not to take the part, or someone that bought it that doesn't use it. If I can't
get
one
you
from
mean? I'm sorry. A fool?
Yeah. Well, you never know. There's fools born every day. So talking about all these, famous, well-known, influential motorcycle folks, if we had the chance to bring somebody in as our guest. And I know we're going to bring a lot of cool people, again, builders, influencers, parts manufacturers, presidents, CEOs of motorcycle companies, event promoters. Who would be the one guest that, if you had, any choice, and why?
That's a hard question. Because I can think of a lot of guys and even gals for, what they've done in the industry, what it's given back.
You don't have to be alive either. Alive or
oh, now you're
past.
talking alive or dead?
Yeah. This is hypothetical.
This is easy then. It would be Indian Larry for me.
And why is that?
Because Indian went completely different than everybody else. He
Okay.
didn't care what anybody else said.
Yeah.
He built what he built, and you liked it or not.
Yep.
I think Indian Larry's fame was a lot larger than himself, and it grew a lot more after he passed, unfortunately. And, you know, there's a lot of great guys out there that are still running his shop and keeping it alive and keeping that dynasty going. But just everything I've ever heard about Indian Larry was just, he was just a cool dude.
Yeah.
Didn't really care what you thought.
Yeah.
He just did what he did. And
He's a little crazy too, standing up on the bike.
yeah, I mean, ultimately that's how it took him, right?
Right.
Ironic story is I had the fortunate opportunity to actually see that bike. It was picked up by a friend of mine from the auction.
I didn't know that.
So he actually has the bike that Indian Larry passed on and has not been repaired. That was left completely as is.
Interesting.
But you think about it, you know, a lot of people, we've lost focus. So when I built my chopper, I wanted to do a little Indian Larry style to it. So I actually twisted some metal.
Yep.
My bike is a suicide shift jockey. And so my shifting rod is actually a bent piece of full solid steel.
Nice.
Actually, Ryan Gore at Paper Street Customs out of Colorado taught me how to do it, and I actually did it with him in his shop.
Oh, that's cool.
Just because I didn't know how they did that.
Sure.
And he does it just the way that Indian Larry did it. I mean, Indian Larry did it, you know, on a full frame.
Yep.
You know, he welded a chain frame together. So just to kind of meet him, to speak with him and kind of get behind, you know, the crazy of what actually drove him.
Yeah.
Because you can still, if you look at some of these choppers and the guys that are out there, you know, the guys that go to Born Free, the guys that do the hand-built show, the, you know, Mama Tried show, you can still see the influence of Indian Larry there. So for me, it would be, I would love to sit down with Indian Larry.
We need to get Bobby Seeger
Yes.
on. I know he's still, I think he has some sort of affiliation or rights to the brand.
I think he still owns the shop.
Yeah, the shop.
Out in New York. I think he still is the owner and operator of the shop.
And he and I have ridden together before. A great guy. So I think we'll see if we could get him in to at least share some stories of him and Larry.
So how about you? Dead or alive, who's the one rider, individual in the motorcycle industry?
For me, it would probably...
You better not cop out and say like Elvis Presley.
No. It has to be... No, to me, it's someone that's had an impact, and it'd probably be Willie G. Just because, to me, I associate him with, obviously, you know, taking Harley back, turning it into, you know, what it is today, and also for the customization, you know, his design eye and some of the coolest bikes that Harley was putting out, he was involved with. So... you know, the design element and being able to ask him, you know, and I've met him, but I've never sat down and talked to him. But just to get his perspective on the motor company, on culture, on certain bikes he was involved with designing, and, you know, how he made them cooler and more customized. And so
how many guys out there don't realize the Willie G skull? They see the skulls of Harley Davidson, but don't understand that's the Willie G skull. Right. Like, it's not just skulls are cool. No, that was the Willie G skull.
It would be, or maybe if we go back more, you know, farther back, it would be like maybe the original, you know, the founders of Harley Davidson, you know.
See, and that's interesting you go that far, because to me, love what they did. The four brothers, the four guys, it was great. But I don't know if I would have anything to talk to them about. Because what their motorcycle riding was completely different than what ours is.
Yeah, it'd be cool though to say, like, what made you guys decide to, like, even think about building your own motorcycle?
Yeah.
I mean, back then in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you know, there was like bicycle, you know, it was bicycles and stuff, but like just to get into their head and you know, what is it? Why did you decide to go that route? And what were the trials and tribulations and challenges? And you know, I think to me that would be cool.
See, what I'd like to do is take them, right, bring them back, go to Milwaukee to the museum, take them in the vault, right? So the vault, I've been in the vault. The vault has one of every single bike Harley's ever manufactured.
Sure.
I would love to sit there with them and say, what about that one? What do you think? To hear if they go, that's the ugliest, weirdest, stupidest looking thing ever.
I think their mind would be blown because they wouldn't have seen, like, you bring them into like bikes more modern, they'd be like, holy crap.
Yeah,
I can't believe that my bike, my early design morphed into this, and it's all because of what we
Yeah.
did. I mean, I think that would be cool to get their perspective.
You know, and it's interesting you talk about the original starting days of Harley Davidson, because how many manufacturers were out there at that time?
There was tons. There was so many manufacturers that never made it.
That just couldn't weather the storm, couldn't make it.
Some of them some of them never even heard of. I mean, even these guys, they used parts from Indian.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
what would the motorcycle industry be like had there been as many riders, let's say, as there are today, you know, in perspective, you know, right percentages back then? What would our advances be now
if those manufacturers made it?
If they made it and they continued innovating and it wasn't just the Davidsons pushing, but it was, you know, you had the guys from Indian pushing as well, but then you had some of those other guys. You had the Crocker guys. You had, you know, I can't even, the Merkel, the guys. There's so many out there I can't even remember. The BSAs back in the day, you know, the Sears and Roebuck that was rolling out bikes at a certain time.
Yeah, I guess the question is, you know, there's only so many buyers of bikes, right? Or from a commercial standpoint, only so many people are going to buy bikes, and you need capital to build them and sell them and market them, and it's like any business. I mean, you hear about the success stories, but you don't hear the ones that all the people that maybe
the fires they ran through to get there,
and maybe they had a contribution. Some of them that aren't here anymore that impacted some of the other ones that made it. But I mean, I do know nowadays it's hard to find a bike that's not well built. I mean, you go across the spectrum, whether it's the Japanese manufacturers, the Italian manufacturers, you know, U.S. manufacturers. I mean, bikes nowadays. I was talking to, I think it was Cruzy in Mexico, and he's on a new Harley, and he's like, man, the advancements they've made in these Harleys. He's like, I feel, you know, they're catching up finally to some of the other, you know, German and Japanese, he told me, manufacturers when it comes to like technology innovation. I mean, it's hard to find a bad bike. I think now it's more like just what suits your, you know, what brand you like more or what styling you like more. But
what are you going to do with it? I mean, what's your style of riding? What's your purpose of it?
Sure. I mean, I was just go ahead.
A lot of people think you and I are crazy for saying we enjoy riding or would like to ride a CFL or own a CFL.
Sure.
A lot of riders go out there, men, women, I don't care who you are, going to go, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
You're going to get 80 miles to a tank and 50 miles to your butt.
Yeah.
Why would you ever want that?
I think riding different styles of bike, eras of bikes, they all have something unique and special. Yeah, I wouldn't take, you know, my hardtail chopper 400 or 500 miles, although back then that's what people did.
You had no choice.
Paul told me he took that bike 300, 400, 500 miles, but you know, obviously we don't have to now with bikes that are more modern, but you still have an appreciation when you're riding these different bikes of what makes them unique and special. And it, you know, I know you have the suicide shift on one of your bikes. So to me, one's not better than the other. It's just they're different and different purposes. You know, I was just over at the re-grand opening of Veloce, and they have what do they have? They have Italian brands. So they have
Moto
Guzzi, yep, Aprilia, Vespa. I just got a Vespa 150. You know, Bieber style. It's a Bieber version. You know, why not just have something to cruise around the neighborhood or pit bike? And I was looking at some of those Aprilia like sport bikes, and they're beautiful. They're like Ducati's, a work of art. And I'm like, that'd be cool at least to take one out on the track or ride one around. I'm not a big like down sport bike guy. I like more of the upright feeling, but still, I mean, that's what's great about our industry is there's a bike for everyone, right? Based on riding style, preference, how much, you know, economics, how much money you can afford, whether it's new or old. That's why I love what we do, is because you can still get, even if you don't make a ton of money or have a lot of spare money, you can still get a pretty cool bike, whether it's new or used, that you can, you know, enjoy, right, on the weekends, or use as your primary mode of transportation, right?
Your story, you started on a used bike.
Yeah.
I started on a used bike.
Sure.
It took me years before I bought my first new bike.
Sure.
And there's times where your point is a good one. I would rather buy a used bike.
Sure.
Because I want to do something different to it.
Right.
And it's hard to justify a brand new bike.
Right.
And then try to make changes to it or try to, you know, adapt it to my riding style or what I think is my riding. Because I've done the same thing. I bought a sport bike, hated it, thought it was for me, and moved on from it.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten back onto sport bikes and ridden them and love them, that I'm educated and I know how to ride them. But it's all everything has a cycle.
Right.
in our lives, I think.
Yep.
You know, we have a cycle of riding, we have a cycle of, you know, relationships and careers and what
Sure.
have you. And it all fits at different times and different elements
Right.
when it's
Anywhere.
supposed to be.
What would you, if you could get a sport bike, what would you get?
Oh, I love the Ducatis.
Like which model Ducati? You know the models? I know there's tons. There's a bunch.
Was
of
it
them.
is it Diavolo or
Diavolo?
Yeah,
That's more the cruiser, isn't it?
That's more
Yeah.
the cruiser style.
Do you like that?
I rode that one. So did they debut those in like 16, 17?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it was.
It was trying to compete with like the Harleys, right?
I think they were going after like that the V Rod.
V Rod or the V Max,
Yep.
the Yamaha, right?
So I was fortunate enough. They unveiled those in Sturgis, and I remember they were doing demo rides off of Junction, and I was had the opportunity to go over there, jump on one of those, and they took us straight up Van Knocker Canyon,
Okay.
which is just right off of there, Sturgis. One of my favorite canyons. Probably not well represented because everybody wants to go to Needles and Badlands and everything else. So it's nice. There's not a lot of people there, but a lot of twisties and curves. And
Sure.
I remember taking that bike up there, and it was so responsive.
Was it?
And it wasn't, for me, not being on sport bikes all the time, I didn't have to relearn how to sit on the bike. I didn't have to new positions. I was able to jump on that bike and go. After doing that ride, I have a friend of mine who she actually owns a motorcycle training school in Salt Lake, in Utah.
Yep.
And she rides one. And I had the opportunity to take her advanced riding course on it.
Oh, that's cool.
So to actually learn a little bit of slow speed maneuvers with it was really great to just see that next level of response to it.
Yep.
So for me, it would 100% be a Ducati. I like their styling.
Yeah,
I like their
pretty.
performance. I like what they put behind them. And I like the way Ducati almost elevates their brand the way that Harley has elevated their brand.
Sure.
That when you walk in, you know you're a Ducati.
That's true.
When you're on the bike, you know it's a Ducati. If you purchase from friends of mine that have purchased, I've seen they indoctrinate you into the Ducati family like Harley does, where that's where I really like something like that. But I don't need the environment.
No,
I just like those
the bike.
bikes.
Yeah, I think mine would be either an MV Agusta Brutale, which is more of an upright.
See, you've really thought about it. I can't even remember the model name. And you know,
I love that, but and then maybe like a BMW makes their like 1000cc bike. I think that's pretty. But I like the BMW, engineering. But for design and styling, and when I saw the MV goes to F4 in Tucson, visiting a shop with the 4 pipes coming out.
Yep.
I was like, holy moly, that's like a work of art. But I wouldn't want to be that low down. I still like being more upright, and the dragster and the Brutale, they're more like upright. So that's why I like that. So we've talked about all these cool different bikes we'd like to have, what we do have. Yeah.
Real quick, can we start again? Yeah, bring it just a little
Okay.
closer.
How's that? Okay. So Lyonel, I know we've talked about like our dream bikes. We've talked about
Which unfortunately I'm now adding more to my list
Well,
as we
we can-
talk. I'm like, oh wait a minute, that MVs are great.
well, that's another episode. We can get into more of that actually. But let's talk about this whole electric thing because I go around my neighborhood and all these kids are on these electric motocross bikes.
Yep.
All the kids want them. They're zipping around, causing mayhem like we used to do on our dirt bikes, right? There are a few electric bikes out there. Harley has one. There's a couple other companies. What's your feeling on that? Would you buy one, and how do you think they're going to impact the future of motorcycle riding in the motorcycle industry?
My short answer of would I buy one, the answer is yes. I would be very limited on which manufacturer bike I would buy.
Okay.
I have been thoroughly impressed with Zero motorcycles from their inception.
And they're still around, yeah?
They're still around. Don't quote me. I think they're still out of Monterey, California. When they first came out, they were, I want to say they're one of the first, but they probably weren't. But they were the first that I was around.
Yeah.
What I like about the Zeros first is no crazy elaborate charging station.
Yeah.
You can roll them into the garage, plug them into your 110 outlet, and the bike charges.
Sure.
Now, I know other manufacturers are getting to that point. But what I like about the Zero, and I say it's been on a hit list of mine, is they have a dual sport bike.
Sure.
And part of one of my passions and desires is I really enjoy big game hunting.
You're going to, by the way, when we do this trip next year, you're going to want one of these bikes.
Oh, I know I'm going to
some
want
sort
one.
of dual
I know
sport,
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I would like to get one of the dual sports when I go big game hunting.
Okay.
Typically, I go in hunting horseback.
Okay.
And it's another mouth to feed. It's another things to worry about.
Sure.
But my goal is, man, if I could take hunting and motorcycle riding,
That would be cool.
guns and adrenaline, like this is the perfect combination for me. So I would love to, in time get a dual sport zero.
Okay.
I could roll into the hills. Nobody could hear me. The animals wouldn't know I'm there. Park it against a tree. Know my range, so I'm not stranded, of course. There's no charging stations
Sure.
out there. So, yeah, I would love to get a dual sport to that nature.
Can you throw like a buck over the back?
No,
seat or
never.
something?
But I could
How do
get
haul
you could
that
get
out?
a trailer or something. Or
All right. It seems like that sounds like a modern, like a futuristic movie. A man, instead of a man and his horse, it's a man
and his electric bike.
in the mountains, hunting, wanting to conquer nature with his electric bike.
Bike goes dead and he creates a water wheel to generate electricity to charge. Yeah, there you go. Somebody call Hollywood and write the screenplay.
So,
But to answer your question, though, that's where I would like to see one. I know it's not practical, and I know that's not anything that definitely fits for all riders. My hesitation to over-the-road electric, I'm not yet to the point of wanting one.
sure.
I'd like to think I'm more of a pleasure rider where I'm willing to make extra stops
Sure.
just to enjoy the ride.
Right.
Where I get nervous, what's your range?
It's the same thing with Tesla, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
where do I
right, where do I
charge?
charge up? How long I have to wait? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And so I just don't know. For me, I'm going to say it's not ready.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for it yet. But I would also argue that I don't think the marketplace and the infrastructure, the consumer base, is fully ready yet.
No. It will be eventually, but you're
I
right.
agree.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it will be.
Yeah.
But I think Harley Davidson came out with the live wire. I've ridden on those.
Yeah.
Very responsive. It's like
heard.
riding a bullet.
Yeah, I heard it's like instant
Yes.
power. Yeah.
It's just smooth.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, when I rode one of those, I got nervous because I could hear a ticking sound tick, 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 as I was riding.
Okay.
Because there's no exhaust. There's no
Right.
sound. You hear the
Right.
sound of the rubber, and then I hear this
Right.
tick, tick, tick sound. And it was actually the key ring hitting back on the key.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because you don't hear anything. So
Right,
it's
right.
honestly a new sense of riding, which I think the next generations of riders
Yeah.
are going to find an enjoyment in that, where we've grown up enjoying the sound of the roar. Like I
Yeah.
want loud pipes. I want to annoy my neighbor. I want to piss you off when you're on the right hand side of my
Right.
bike.
Well, you want people to hear you for
Yeah.
safety as well, right?
I'm wondering if there's going to be a Doppler switch where riders are like, it's just so peaceful to get on my electric motorcycle and I can hear the sweet birds in the air chirping and the cows in the field munching their cud or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe there's going to be a switch that I just personally, I don't think I know I'm not there, and I don't know
Yeah.
if the motorcycle community is 100% bought in yet.
Yeah, I think it's like anything. It takes time. There's got to be a transitionary period. Of course, you got to get the bikes going farther. Our culture and our community is more about the power, the engine, but we still want to see this industry thrive and continue. And if it has to evolve, so be it. Because to me, at the end of the day, it's about the freedom of being on two wheels, enjoying the open road, being with your
Where it can
friends.
take me.
Where's the destination? Where the journey is part of the experience. And so, I hear all the time people say, this industry isn't going to continue. It's not going to thrive. I think through the reinventation, is that a word? Through basically reinventing itself and getting young people on scooters, on electric bikes, and then they're used to it, and then they get on, they buy electric motorcycles. I think that transition is going to happen. I mean, you have the EPA with their
Breaking
mandates.
everybody down.
So I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and will the manufacturers essentially adjust, rise to the occasion, and then will the consumer base be there in the same way the current consumer base is there. I think in Europe, you go to Europe right now, everywhere I go, scooters, motorcycles, because there's nowhere to park.
Yep.
It's gas is expensive. I mean, anyone that hasn't been to Europe, when you go to a big city like Paris, London, any other cities in Spain, all you see, especially in metro areas, is scooters and small CC motorcycles. Now I'm starting to see the electric stuff transition
Picking up,
in parking areas in these big, and so I think they will be adopting it, and the mandates there are much more stringent. Even cars, they're ahead of us as far as limiting combustion engines and mandating electric. So I think you'll see it there, and then it'll kind of evolve here and transition here. But I'm not obviously like an expert, but within the next I'd say 20, 30 years, I don't think you're going to see any combustion engine motorcycles being sold new. You'll have a secondary market in used bikes. But, you know, I just want to see two wheels remain. I want to see people being able to enjoy being on two wheels, whether it's on dirt, whether it's on the road. And if that's the next phase, I mean, things change, things evolve, then we're just going to have to embrace it and
the
deal with it.
technology is amazing. So we bought an electric dirt bike for my youngest son. He's 6 years old.
He loves it, I'm sure, right?
Loves it.
Right.
And I love it because if I was to buy him what I bought my oldest son, which was a Honda 50,
yes,
he has all of the power of the Honda 50 that he feels comfortable with. Now, of course, he's like all of us were and are.
Right.
We're daredevils, no fear. Let's just balls to the wall, full throttle.
Right, right.
But this little Burmax is the brand that we've got him. Tiny little thing. It actually has a governor switch.
Okay.
He doesn't even know the switch exists.
Sure.
It's hidden a little tiny keyhole. You slip in an Allen key is all I use.
Right.
Click the switch, and it literally governs that motor to no faster than 16 miles an hour.
Well, how fast can it go, though?
Well, when you turn it off, that's the best part. It'll do 35
Oh, that's pretty good.
with a weight capacity of 250.
Really?
So I jump on the thing,
wow.
and with the governor off, I will outrun the Honda 50 with my son on it
That's crazy.
because of that instantaneous power. So
The battery probably only lasts like 2 minutes with you on it, though.
Oh, yeah. I'm not 250 yet, but it's interesting, though, because you bring up all of the technological advances.
Sure.
Because literally that bike, we can flip it to that mode. He can ride it. I'm 100% comfortable with him at 16 miles an hour.
Of course.
Even if he feels, he's wearing proper gear and everything like that. But it's also indoctrinating him into the desire and the passion of riding.
100%.
And that's something that, at 6 years old, when I didn't start riding at 6 years old.
Right, right.
Where would I be in my motorcycle two-wheeled life, in my journey, had I started at 6 years old?
100%.
Completely different.
Yeah.
So I do see that as a benefit. As a father, I love the fact
Getting
that
him outside.
he's outside. I can flip it on. He can just
playing games.
He can do it.
Video games. Yeah.
And of course, my other two boys have bikes.
Sure.
So he can now go riding with his brothers. They're now connected. That's that bond there that, hopefully I'm creating a memory that they'll have this forever of remember jumping on the bikes and
100%.
going to this. And so that's a wonderful, advantage. I mean,
right.
For example, the dirt bikes my sons have, there's no headlights, right?
Right.
Well, the electric does.
Right.
Full LED head and tail light.
So there's definitely advantages.
There's advantages there, and so
plus you don't have to bring them, get them repaired and dealing with, gas.
There's no oil changes.
Right, no bad gas, no oil changes. Now, obviously, that's the downside in the industry is you don't have dealerships that are necessarily going to be able to, generate income off of service.
Correct.
So they're going to have to pivot or figure out. It's like the Tesla model. You're dealing with maybe battery replacement or minor electrical issues, but you're not going to have the issues you typically have with combustion engine motorcycles, right? So that'll be interesting.
What it tells me, though, is until I get bought in or until that aha moment hits, I'm just going to keep buying combustion engine motorcycles and hold on to them. And so when we look back and you say, hey, I said 30 years ago we'd be no more OEM manufactured combustion engines, I'm going to say yes, but I have mine. And now they're worth 12 times the amount, and they're not worth anything in reality except that nobody can get them anymore.
Well, they'll be worth money, right? I would think.
Then you'll feel like, I'll feel really cool jumping on my loud Harley or my powerful
the
Diavolo, thank you. My Ducati. And annoying all of my neighbors because they're used to silent motorcycles, and I'll be that one guy.
That's tearing up the neighborhood. It's funny because maybe that's going to be my angle with my wife because she's always telling me, why you have to buy more motorcycles? And I can say, look, honey, these are great investments. At some point, I do it with cars already. This is, at some point, these motorcycles are going to be worth a fortune because everyone's going to want combustion engine motorcycles. And so it's just a matter of time. It's like, investing in gold, right?
Yeah.
Futures. You're anticipating the market going up on it and the demand going up. So that's going to be my...
So it's funny you say that. I think there's a Crocker for sale going through the Mecum auction. I think we talked about this.
That's above my allowance, though. My budget, that's a little too heavy for me. I am going to go, though. I've gone... If you haven't been, by the way, you've got... The auction is awesome. It's the biggest motorcycle auction, I believe, in the world.
I think it is,
in January, Vegas. Amazing bike. They run.
Is it the World? I think they run it in February. I think they run one in Miami as well.
I don't think it's as big though. You know, they've
Well,
built,
Vegas will command
Vegas
attention.
And the car shows like Barrett Jackson, which I was at here recently, and Mecum. They have a Mecum here, but it's more like mostly vehicles and a little bit of motorcycle. In fact, Jason and I bid on a couple of Indians at Mecum, but they went way more than we were willing to spend. It was cool though being up on stage with the bidding.
really?
But anyone who hasn't been, even if you don't, want to buy it, it's just there's a bunch of gearheads there. People love it, and you get to see like these cool old bikes going across the auction block. And there's also, oftentimes really good deals to be had. From these bikes that go up on the. So I'm going to try to get up there in January.
It's funny you bring that up because right now the motorcycle market is relatively soft.
Yes, especially the new bikes.
Yes, the newer bikes.
Yeah.
So if you're not an avid collector, and I know it sounds like a total plug for Mecum, right? I've never even been. It's on the list, but
sure.
If you're looking for the Crockers, if you're looking for the vintage, if you're looking for the FLs, FLHs, whatever it is, yeah, you're going to spend money on it, regardless. But if you're a guy looking for a great bike,
well, they have some
maybe at a bargain deal.
They got $5,000, $7,000 bikes there.
Yeah, you might go there and find your next diamond in the rough. You might find your next donor bike for a builder. You might find something that honestly is fully custom that is just not being appreciated at the right
seen
time.
They go through all the time. 100%.
And they move through. What I have seen, again, have not visited the Mecum show, but from the videos I've seen, it's like the world's largest motorcycle show.
Yeah, they just turn
because
the bikes,
even if you're not a bidder, they have everything staged out.
You can see it all.
And you can see the staging a day, 2-3 days beforehand.
100%.
And that's where most of the buyers are actually making their decisions. Okay, this is it, lot number. And there's a schedule of when it should hit the auction block so you can plan around it. But I'm like, I just want to go and start walking the rows and rows of bikes.
Right.
Just to see,
what
regardless.
Yeah,
and
it's cool.
It's funny, though. Let's talk about another industry besides like automotive that actually has this much of a cult following to command that much of attention besides motorcycles. I mean, people are into guns. People are into tattoos. They're into, sports memorabilia, shoes, clothes. I don't care what it is. But you don't see a mass congregation of people coming together, like-minded, to trade, barter, sell, and perpetuate an industry like the motorcycle community does.
That's true. That's what brings us together is the love of riding.
Maybe Comic-Con will outdo us someday.
Yeah, Comic-Con,
that's getting pretty big.
Comic-Con does get a lot of people, but it's just different. It's just different. So we've covered a lot of stuff today. Obviously, this is our first podcast of many. Sometimes it'll just be you and I bullshitting, right? Sometimes we'll have on guests. I promise everyone who tunes in that you will not be disappointed when it comes to the variety of guests we have, right? I mean, I don't want to discount just how many different interesting people we're going to have. And obviously you and I are in the industry.
We're not very interesting. We're
not
interesting.
interesting.
We're just the ones that are
but we
here.
know interesting people.
Exactly.
So
I'll coattail them.
That's fine. And I know that they're going to have some amazing stories to tell and share. Again, stuff that people have never heard of or seen. Really just an insider's view. If they were like friends, like we're friends with them, they're going to see that. And I'm so excited about that. We just want to entertain people and inform people that love all things motorcycle, right? That's what it's about,
Plain and simple.
So, I promise anyone that tunes in, this is going to be informative, entertaining, funny. You may get a little bit of a tear once in a while. I mean, there's no holds barred, right? This is going to be, as we said, raw, real, uncut. And in fact, our first guest is someone that you're not going to want to miss. We're going to get really down and dirty with this guy. I know he's going to be a great guest. He's going to share some stories that he's never told anyone else before. And you're just not going to want to miss it. So stay tuned. Our first guest on Motorcycle Mavericks coming up in our next episode. Can't wait for it. What do you think?
This is going to be great because I know who he is. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag here, but the stories I've heard about this guy.
Oh, he's crazy.
Beyond the parts, beyond what he builds, beyond what he gives to the motorcycle community, just the stories I've heard of how he lives his life.
Yes.
Like I'm on the edge of my seat, or I will be when he gets in here, just because I don't know how the guy's still alive.
Yeah, but he also has some inspirational things to talk about. Again, you're not going to miss it because he's some humor, some craziness, success story, not overnight, fought hard, long. But again, you will not be disappointed with this guest. I can promise you that.
That'd be great.